My name is Bruce Allen Cromell Jr. and I was a interior communications electrician's third class when I left the Navy. When we got back to port, my cousin who was on the USS New Jersey, they had decommissioned while we were in the Gulf. He got orders to the Missouri, so I was waiting for him to show up, but he didn't show up before. You know, I was hoping he would come when we were in Thailand, but he didn't show up until after the fight was over, basically. So he came on board, and then we went to Australia. We went to Fremantle, and then we went to Hobart, Tasmania, and then we went back to Pearl. Now, Australia was a good place to go after the war. In fact, it was such a nice place that we left 6 guys there. They didn't want to come back. So 2 of them actually did come back to the ship, got court-martialed and booted, but I don't think the other 4 ever did come back. It was too nice of a place, and the Australians were very very nice. I never bought a drink when I was in Australia, and so we went back to Hawaii, and they had a Tiger cruise. So some of the guys took leave and went home, and then you could bring on a family member, a male family member, to ride the ship back from Hawaii to Long Beach. This is something the Navy's done. I'm sure they're still doing it. And then so we got back to a homecoming in Long Beach. We had a big, it was a big celebration. And then we went to Fleet Week again in San Francisco. And then we prepared for the 50th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. 50th anniversary of Pearl Harbor was our last trip. It was the last trip we were ever going to make. We had already been told we were going to get decommissioned. So the Wisconsin, when it got back, it started to be decommissioned. They never made another port visit, as far as I know. So the Iowa, New Jersey were gone. Wisconsin was getting ready to be, or was in the process of decommissioning, and we had one more visit to go. So it was the last cruise a battleship was going to make. So we went on our way to Pearl. We went through another storm, and it damaged this time our port side. Or actually, I'm sorry, our starboard side. So as we were coming into Pearl, they had the bosun's mates paint the whole port side of the ship, just the port side, to fix the damage that was done, because that's the side that was going to be up against the pier, because President Bush, the first, was going to be there with Cheney and Powell and Storm and Norman, I think might have been there, I'm not sure. But basically they were going to, the president and the brass were going to be on the ship. So they painted that, and then, so we pulled into port, and one of the jobs, I was an IC-man, so we did the phones. So they had thrown a phone line over the Secret Service for the president's red phone. So I don't know how I got picked, but me and IC2 Dimmick were told to go to the captain's cabin and make sure this phone was taken care of. So, we go up there, and there's a bunch of Secret Service agents standing around, and they got the line on the pier, so we run a line into the captain's cabin, and we hook this big red phone, bunch of buttons on it, never seen one before. And normally the procedure is, when you connect the phone up, you test it to see if it works. So we're both standing there, and I'm like, well, you test it. I don't want to test it, you test it. So I said, all right, I'll pick it up. Well, it's set so when you lift the receiver up, it automatically rings to wherever the Secret Service base or operations is. And so it'll ring once maybe, and then they'll answer the phone. Mr. President, good afternoon, this is Agent so-and-so, how can I help you? And I'm like, this is IC3 Cromell in the Missouri, I'm just testing the phone. Sounds good, Cromell, click. So that was that. And then our division was kind of butted up against, when we manned the rails for port visits, so up against the surrender deck. Well, they didn't have enough Marines to fill the whole surrender deck, so I got to be up on the surrender deck with another one of my guys, was in my division, Grego. And in fact, he just retired from the Navy. He stayed in, all the rest of us guys got out. But so we got, the president came right down the ladder behind us, the entourage and everything, which was kind of neat. And then we got to see the motorcade come up on the pier. So we concluded that, and we went back and we went to Seal Beach Naval Weapons Station, and we anchored and we started offloading all of our ammunition, what was left. And that was a 2 or 3 day evolution. And so it was a somber time from the beginning actually of that last cruise to the end when we finally pulled into Long Beach, because we knew we were never going to go anywhere. And so a lot of the guys, you know, we were all, what's going to happen now? Where are we going to end up? That kind of thing. Some of the guys got out, you know, their enlistments were up. And I had, at that time, when March came, when we decommissioned the ship, I had like 5 months left. So I didn't know what was going to happen to me. I told them I wasn't going to, I planned on going to college at that point. Now, had the Missouri stayed in commission, I would have liked to re-enlisted and stayed on that for at least another 2 years or so. But since it wasn't, and there was no other battleships around, it's hard when you go, when you realize towards the end the significance of this ship. It didn't dawn on me when I first, I mean, it was impressive to look at, but it didn't dawn on me the history and everything that was wrapped up into it until towards the end of my enlistment. So I got put on the USS Wabash, which was an oiler. So I went from the creme de la creme of the Navy to an oiler, which is not the creme de la creme of the Navy. And they were getting ready to do a Westpac, and none of those guys had been on a Westpac before. And there was one guy that was from the Missouri, IC2 Hoke. He went over with me. We went there, and we kind of tried to whip that place into shape. And we ended up spending 2 months of 4 months left. I was out to sea. Went to Seattle. The only thing interesting about the Seattle trip was, or that ship was, I was in the berthing, a temporary berthing, because I wasn't going to stay on there, so they never assigned me a permanent berthing. So I was in the overflow berthing, and there was a guy swabbing the deck one day, and I started talking to him, and come to find out, he grew up about 10 miles from where I grew up in my little small town in Michigan. And so we got to talking, and that was his first ship. So I showed him Seattle, basically what I knew of it, and then I wished him good luck, and I got out of the service, and I went back to Michigan and went to college. It's funny how much of a small world it is. I had ran into a kid I used to work with in a grocery store on the street in San Francisco. He had joined the Navy. This was after the Gulf War, and we bumped into each other. And so, yeah, the Navy was a good experience for me.